Zef ded Gjon Deda Vukel. Baba Yaleshit the Domens. Jushi Trefmieve. Vlaui Drans. Filius the Prans. The Vlaui Toms. The Babai Tim, my father, Sokoli. Like many here know, my uncle Joja and his two brothers and three beloved sisters grew up in Kusin. Their parents were Ded Jodeda and Jen Lulashi. The year 1945, of course, was a traumatic one and would change the course of our family's history. Ded Joni was murdered by the communists. His brothers, George Joni and Nick Joni, would be killed soon thereafter. The Vukel family were declared enemies of the people by the communist regime. Eventually, the 6 children would flee to Slovenia. They settled in crime. They worked hard, and against the odds, they made a good life for themselves. Joja with Breda and Toma with Olga raised their families in Slovenia. Sokoli and my mother, Justia, married and raised our family in the United States. Dranja, Filia, and Prena raised their families in America too. Zefi is, of course, the last of the siblings to pass away. Toma died in 1998, Dranja in 2004, Prena in 2011, Filia 2014, and my father, Sokoli, 2017. I loved my Uncle Zefi. I loved him because I felt like we had a special connection. He was the youngest of his 3 brothers, and I'm the youngest of my 3 brothers, or my 2 brothers, the youngest of 3. I always felt like he recognized a special bond with me, and I certainly felt one with him. I loved my Uncle Joja simply because he would visit. He came to America regularly when I was a child. And there's nothing more special than time spent together. It's never enough, and I wish there could be more. But I thank God for the time that we had. Now, I don't remember this, but my mother told me that one of the times when Zefi visited America, I was a baby, and we took him back to the airport to return to Slovenia. And my uncle carried me through the airport until it was time to go through the gate to get on his plane. And so at that time, he hands me back to my parents, and I started crying. And so, he still had a few more minutes, so they handed me back to Uncle Joja, and I stopped crying. Handed me back, I started crying again. I don't know how many times this went back and forth, but eventually he had to go, and it was his time to leave, but I didn't want to let him go. I also love my uncle because he gave us his 2 special sons, Alesh and Domen. Zefi was smart to have them come join us in the US for some summers, and we created some lasting memories. I also love my Uncle Zefi because he made people around him feel special. As a child, he would whisper into my ear. It wouldn't really mean anything. He would do something like shh, 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 but it was just to make it seem like we had a secret, and that made me laugh and feel special. He'd visit us, and he'd make us a special treat, kachimak. And I know that he continued doing that for his grandchildren, that this was a special Sunday tradition. But also, as I became an adult, he'd want to know more about me. And so he'd come up to me like he would to anybody else, stand up straight in his way, seem like he was blocking everything else out in the world, look me straight in the eye, and you get all of the pleasantries aside, but then he'd really look you in the eye and say, "How are you? How's your wife? How's your family? How's business? How's your job? Are you happy?" He showed that he cared. He was easy to talk to. He would tell you about his interesting stories and his travels around the world. And I love that my uncle Joja was a link to our family's legendary past. And in fact, the final link from that generation. This is an important moment. And for those reasons, it's also a very big loss for all of us. It is up to us here to continue to tell the story of Ded Joni and Jod Deda and all of those who came before and after them. But for now, all we can do is say goodbye. Zefi joins his parents. He joins his brothers and sisters. He joins my beloved brother Nick. He joins our beloved cousin Natalie. He joins our beloved Justa Jonia. There are so many others who have passed, but I leave it there with some of our most recent painful losses. But some time has passed and we can use our memories after having processed those losses and think fondly about them and use that to ease our sorrow during our most recent loss. Zef, Joja, Aj, Bushof Napach, rest in peace.